Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's very nice to be back in Russia, and thank you for having me as your guest. I'm talking today about doing demo work in Africa under difficult, challenging conditions. This is an overview of the talk today. First, talk about the origins of our company, background on South Africa and Africa, look at the economies, our clients, services provided, or requirements for African projects, the challenges we face, how we meet these challenges, and then some example projects. So let's start about the origins of our company. My wife and I are both engineers. We went to South Africa in 1983, straight from university. We planned to stay 2 or 3 years. 38 years later, we're still here. We went there for adventure and opportunity. I started off doing explosives and blasting research at the Chamber of Mines, did some lecturing at university, developed and patented shaped explosive charges, and that's what pulled me into demolition. Fortunately, I found demolition. We've been doing contracting work since 1990, so the last 30-odd years. Our business, we started from scratch. We have a technical base, and we look at global best practices. We are focused on the long term. We do difficult and demanding work. We don't do the low-cost jobs. We go for the difficult jobs where you can charge a reasonable price, and you're working for the multinational clients with very high safety, health, environmental, and quality requirements. We do both mechanical and explosive work in-house, so we can choose the best method for any job. We don't need to go one way or the other. We can do both ways. Choose the best method. Myself, I have 41 years of technical background in explosives and blasting. Our company is the leading and the largest contractor in Africa. We've done projects across Africa. We've also worked with other contractors in Chile. We've worked with Edifice from India, and we've worked in Indonesia. Our company name JET is derived from the jetting action of a shaped explosive charge, because that's how we got into doing this work. So that illustrates the shaped explosive charge shooting through our logo. These are some charges which I developed and patented in the late or the early 1990s. These charges don't have metal as is traditional in shaped charges. This one here, I beg your pardon, I got ahead of myself. This one here weighs 5 kilograms. It will break through a 1 meter reinforced concrete wall. The small one is 300 grams, doing it again. That will cut through a 75 millimeter steel bolt. So it's very useful in our work. Here's a view of our property. It's just under 9 acres. There's our offices, workshops, our warehouse for all of our tools and equipment. Our machines, we have 31 excavators from 1 ton up to 102 tons. This is industrial equipment which we take off of large plants, which we demolish and then resell for reuse. Now, background on Africa and South Africa. Africa is the most beautiful country. It has wonderful people, but it is one of the last frontiers on earth. It is wild, it's exciting, but once you go there, it's almost impossible to leave, which is why I'm still there. You can't get away. Now, if we look at the size of the economies and just the size of the country, South Africa is a relatively low GDP per person. Africa is even lower, and that just indicates how much development is still to happen. If you look at population, 60 million, so about 40% of Russia, but in Africa itself, already 1.2 billion people. The size of South Africa, small compared to Russia. But can you believe that Africa is almost twice the size of Russia? Now that's big. Languages, 20 languages and more in South Africa, over 2,000 languages in Africa. So that also presents many challenges. Now let's look at the size of the economies and the quality of demolition work which is there. South Africa, if we take that as one, the rest of Africa is almost 5 times that. Very much the same as Russia. And if we compare that to the EU, you know it's much, much greater. Now, let's look at not the overall size, but the quality market which is there. Because there's 2 types of work, as everyone knows. We have the projects where they require high levels of safety, health, environment, and quality. We have contractors who do that work with high experience, technical staff, advanced equipment. They can do the job safely, but it costs more money. Many customers, they don't care about safety. They don't care about health, environment, quality. Right? I know you suffer from the same things here in Russia. But with low cost comes lots of problems, delays, injuries, environmental issues. So we work in the gray area. Our customers demand the best of first world services in Africa. So in the developed world, most of it has high check requirements, very small portion with low check. In Africa, it's the reverse. Most of the work available, people are wanting low cost. Give me low cost, make it go away. Thank you, goodbye. Let's go. Low cost. So, if we look at the size then of the market in South Africa, the high check requirement is less than 10% of the market. About the same in Africa in general, even less. In Russia, I'm not sure, I'm guessing maybe 50-50. Someplace like the EU, I'm guessing maybe 80-90% is high check. So in Africa, the best projects are limited. Our clients, mainly multinational petroleum mining chemical companies and industrial companies with high check requirements. They want the best performance in Africa, and they're prepared to pay for it. We also do large and difficult urban and commercial jobs when they arise. Services that we provide, we do lots of metallurgical plants. South Africa is a very big mining country. We work for the majors, BHP, Rio Tinto, Anglo American, CBRD, those companies. Chemical and petrochemical companies, people like BP, Shell, Dow, and so forth. Steelworks and heavy industry, ArcelorMittal, one of the biggest steel-making companies. Power generation, that's the government ESCOM. We do controlled explosive work when it's required. Most of our work is mechanical, but when you want explosives, sometimes you want them really badly because it is the prime way to do the job. We also work on large dams as they age and they're upgraded and changed. Lots of detail work there, and we do lots of emergency response work when things go wrong and they need it fixed quickly. Now our requirements for African projects, first of all, we have to make sure we can get people in and out and they can be safe. And there's many aspects to that. We have to be able to move our equipment around, get it there, have it back safely. And then, of course, we have to get paid. Very, very important. But fortunately, working for large companies, sorry, I'm talking too fast. I can understand. I should have done it in Russian as well. My apologies to that. So, one of the major issues is getting paid. At the end of the job, you must get your money. But with us, the fortunate position is we're working for multinationals usually, so then you may have some delays, but you do get paid. Personal safety. There's many aspects of personal safety that have to be addressed. The travel routes and facilitators at borders. Getting across the borders sometimes is very complicated. So it's important to have the right connections to be able to make that border crossing. You have to make provisions for medical facilities and rapid medical evacuation, so you must have helicopter services to take people out if needed. We've never required it, but the facility is always there. You have to make arrangements for attack and terrorism evacuation plans. Most of the large companies we work for in Africa have those plans in place, and we fall into their procedures. Diseases are a regular problem in Africa. Ebola comes up sometimes in the DRC when we work there. You have to take the necessary precautions to have your contingencies in place. Another problem is kidnap and ransom. You have to have plans available for when it happens. The terrorist episodes can erupt at any time, and you must be prepared. Again, we haven't required it, but you need those contingencies. The most demanding project we had was in Algeria on an emergency shutdown for ArcelorMittal. There, they were going through a very turbulent period, and we had Army guard during transport and at our hotel, and we were sequestered in the hotel. So we saw only the plant in the hotel for the entire job. So that was the most difficult environment. Transport of equipment, we do it by road, by sea, and by air when necessary. You can have import and export snags, and those you have to also have facilitators to get them through the borders and make sure your equipment moves. You have to have special insurance, and again, fortunately, we've never needed it, but you're shipping very large capital equipment, and you must have contingencies in case it's a total loss. There is oftentimes insufficient infrastructure to support large loads, so you have to do some dismantling and make special provisions to get equipment in at times. The longest delay we ever experienced was in West Africa, when there was a dispute between the transporter and the port, and our equipment was held up for 13 months. This gives a view of Africa and the countries that we've worked in. This is South Africa down here. So typically in Southern Africa, we can take equipment in by road. To go up into the Congo, we have to go up into Mombasa port and then across to the upper northeast of the Congo. To go up to West Africa, it goes out of Durban, so we ship it down to the coast. It goes around up into the ports and then inland. In Algeria, when we worked there, it was an emergency, we had to fly everything up. Challenges. Our biggest challenge is government. Over the last 30 years, we've had many, many challenges in Africa, especially South Africa. Poor governance, the rule of law is declining, and we suffer from corruption, nepotism, mismanagement, dysfunction. The government debt has tripled in the last 25 years. State-owned companies which provide many services are in disarray. Since 2008, we've had increasing unplanned electrical blackouts. In the last 3 years, we've had sovereign credit downgrading to junk status, makes borrowing more expensive, investment more difficult. The economy is in huge distress with low business confidence, and turnaround of this whole mess is very difficult and it's distant. We can't see it yet. So what do we do? First of all, we pray. And what else do we do? We drink. We must have a way to relieve the stress, right? So first we pray, then we drink. The other challenge is social. We have inappropriate and inflexible labor laws. We have a very progressive constitution in South Africa. Very progressive. However, to make it work in practice is very difficult, very difficult. We have over 40% unemployment. The last figure I just read 2 days ago was 44.4% unemployment. Almost half of the people are unemployed. 19% of the working age people are HIV positive or have AIDS. We have a very strong program in our company. We haven't lost anybody to AIDS in over 9 years. There's over 5 million illegal immigrants in South Africa. They're drawn to South Africa because of the prosperity. There's over 17 million people receiving monthly state grants, people who aren't working, who get basic grants just to survive. So the challenges, social, continue, desperation of many social ills. There's a culture of dependency and entitlement. There's poor delivery of basic services. Educating and training is increasingly subpar, so we have to do much training in our business on an ongoing basis. There's immigration of skills to the developed world. Many people with skills and education decide, I'm out of here, I'm good. We've lost some of our own people to Canada, the UK, Australia, and New Zealand. Young people, small families, or young families, they decide there is better prospects than they go. So we have a good core team that we keep building on, but it's always a challenge to retain the skills. There's violent protests which develop into looting and property destruction. We saw it again in July this past year. Politically motivated ends up in chaos. There's also extensive theft on a regular basis which you have to deal with. You can imagine copper disappears very quickly in South Africa. This is one of our sites in Johannesburg, and this is a protest going on across the street. The whole area is locked down for 3 days, nothing happens. It's a regular occurrence. We also have a construction mafia to deal with, where local people will band together. They will come to sites, they will extort money, and they come armed with Russian equipment, AK-47s, and this is not a joke, it happens. And it's very difficult at times. In 2019, South Africa was rated the second most dangerous country in the world. Indigenization, big thing. Because of apartheid in the past, the black population was largely left behind. So the government is there to redress all of these new, all of the changes and the high aspirations of the people. The government objectives are that every company is over 51% black owned, and that black management is 92% in every company. That's their objectives. So for a white person, I have challenges. These are the other requirements. They have what they call a BEE scorecard, Black Economic Empowerment. So they want black ownership, and we're measured against all of these. Black ownership, black women ownership, black designated groups, youth, and disabled people are listed there. The overall black management control, black skills development, enterprise and supplier development, socioeconomic development. We have to subcontract to small and medium businesses and give much business to the locals wherever you work. Most of our clients demand that our company be at least 51% black owned. So, what can we do? We have not found the right person to partner with, so we've donated shares to an incubator for black industrial startups. We sell and lease back our company property to a black ladies group under preferential terms on the never-never system. So we've been able to achieve 54% black ownership status on our school. So can you imagine with your company that you must give capital away? It took many years to get that right. But in the end, it's the only way to survive. So I'm still a visitor in South Africa. If I want to stay, I'm going to make plans. So we do, and we go. And we must smile. We have much to be thankful for. Right, let's talk about some jobs. This was our first submission to the World Demo Summit for 2017. And this was the Explosive Demolition Award that year. This was the job, 44-meter high building, very small site, no space for a high reach, 500 millimeters from the adjacent parking garage, this place. We needed precise control of the collapse. We used 64 high-stretch steel tendons across the building, keep everything together. On the east side of the building, we had to strengthen that structural steel up to 3 stories to avoid kickback. And then we used electronic initiation and a center drop collapse mechanism. There's the building. The parking garage is here, 500 millimeters away. We put the tendons across the building here to keep it together. We then used a center drop to pull that in and that in. There's another view of it. Church across the street. Very tight. There's the parking garage there in the dust. We had to pull it into a triangular shape. There's the muck pile where everything collapsed onto a triangle. Success. Here's another project where we got the award in 2018 for industrial work. It was a large boiler on a coal-fired power station. So it was unit number 3 of 6. It was blown up. They overfueled it on startup after maintenance. It blew up. The explosion caused extensive structural damage to the boiler. It was surrounded by 5 other operating units. The main structure had to stay for reuse. The job had to be done quickly. We had to use complex rigging and controlled cut and drop. We had 145 people at peak, and we worked 330,000 plus hours injury-free. There's the boiler there. This is looking from the side. The blue sheeting off as well. And this is a quick sketch of the boiler to illustrate. Here's the boiler here. It hangs from 96 meters, so everything is suspended from the top. Everything in red, that's the structure. That has to stay. In pink is equipment which must remain in use, so it mustn't be damaged. So we must get all of this heavy ducting off, down to this floor, then down. These floors here at 16 meters will stay, not be damaged. Everything hung, so we must start work bottom up. This is what the boiler looks like after the explosion. You see the boiler blown open here. This is all the steel work. Columns shredded, pulled apart. Very dangerous. So we had to work bottom up, removing all of this carefully. We had to re-support several areas, do ongoing inspections for safety. We had to work around the clock, 2 12-hour shifts, 6 days a week to get the job done. This is some of the ducting. This was taken off of the air heater here on the side. We had to pick it up, move it 20 meters, put it down. There you can see the people. This is 8 meters diameter, so doing very heavy and difficult lifts. This is looking up into the boiler house towards the end, doing the final work, taking down the boiler walls. This is right at the end. There's our men trimming off the final bits. These are the beams which the boiler hangs from at the top of the structure, 8.2 meters, massive beams. There is the finished product ready for the rebuild. Here's another job, which we got the award in 2019 for recycling and environmental. This was for decontamination, demolition, and recycling of uranium, gold, and acid plant complexes. South Africa, over the years, has produced over 50% of the world's gold that's ever been mined. Over 50% from the very large gold deposits there. Now, those deposits of gold occur with pyrite and uranium. So, there's many gold uranium acid plants. We've demolished over 80 of them since 1993, when we did our first one. So that also involves decontamination of uranium and uranium isotopes, lead smelting to remove contamination, lots of high-pressure cleaning and abrasion, decontamination. We recovered gold as well. We recovered over 16 tons of gold from 32 plants, current value of $900 million since 1993. We salvage major reusable equipment for reuse. Then we do the environmental rehab and we revegetate. Here's an example of a large plant from the 1950s. This is the acid plant. This is uranium plant. This is the gold plant over here. So this plant sits on 240 acres. So it's a very large job to do everything. Decontaminate, demolish, rehabilitate. Here's a newer uranium plant from the early 1980s, a smaller plant. This is the state we tend to find the plants in. Very messy. They turn off the key and they leave. Then we must take it from there. These are the deposits in the pipes, so it must be cleaned, removed first mechanically, high pressure cleaning for the scaling, and then the rubber lining. Here's a large uranium leach tank, 10 meters across. All of the buildup, the rubber lining, it must all be removed, decontaminated. So we use both mechanical methods, as you know. We also use explosives sometimes. This was a large mill building, which is 260 meters long. The easiest way for us was to blast it, put it on the ground quickly. So we prepared this and dropped it in 3 days. Quickest way to do it. Here's a view of the Decontamination Bay. On this particular job, there was 27,000 tons of steel. It was cut into more than 800,000 pieces. Each one had to be cleaned, laid out, radiologically scanned. If need be, cleaned more, scanned again, and then finally it can be released. So over 800,000 pieces. Here is some lead ingots. There's lots of lead used in the uranium and acid plants. So on this particular job, there was 233 tons. First, you high pressure clean it. In the end, we smelted it to get the rest of the contamination off in the slag. So this is then ready to go. Here's another example of a gold and uranium plant. This is on 98 acres. There's the gold plant, there's the uranium plant. We've done everything here. Decontaminate, demolish, recovery equipment. On this plant, we recovered 480 kilograms of gold during the project. This is what it looked like 10 years later. So we leave it, regrass it, plant the trees, and now the animals have taken over. Okay, this is the final project I'll talk about today. We received the World Demo Award last year, the overall award, and the explosive award for this project. It was in Johannesburg, a 108-meter high building. It was extensively damaged by fire. 3 firemen died. The floors were damaged, and they were worried about catastrophic collapse. We had to install stability monitoring, an emergency evacuation protocol, backpropping of the failed floors. The nearest building was 7.8 meters away, so very close. And we had to do the job without damaging. It took very detailed preparation and blasting control measures to do the job safely. We used electronic initiation, and we had individual hole firing of 2,363 holes. So there's the building in central Johannesburg, 108 meters high, burned for 3 days, and 3 firemen died. The inside, the fire was very hot. It burnt everything. If you look at the beams, you see the beams have failed, and they're hanging on the rebar. So the danger was a pancake collapse. So what do? We use sacrificial tops. So we install it, we leave it there. We put in monitoring equipment to monitor the movement of the building, to make sure it's stable. If it starts to move, the plan was to evacuate immediately and leave the building. Fortunately, it stayed stable. This is some of the biggest columns, 1.5 meters by 1.8 meters. So they had to be drilled and then protected. You have to wrap these columns with steel wire and then geotextile to keep the concrete. The concrete mustn't fly because there's buildings all around. So this is the electronic initiation system, which fired the holes individually to control the air blast and the vibration. There's the building. This is half a second after the start of the implosion. You see, here's our closest building, 7.8 meters away. These buildings around us, we've covered all of the windows, because as the building falls, there's a big wind that carries small debris. And there it's going down, and it has to fall in this area. That's all the space we have. And there it is in the end. It worked, thankfully. Thank God it worked. Here it is, all of the debris in the basement, and there is the neighboring building, no damage. So, that's a bit of insight.